Welcome to Fully Booked, the bookish podcast where I'll chat about all things book and reading related. Whether you're a new or a pro reader, there's something for everyone to learn. I'm here to help you on your reading journey and find that next great read that will keep you fully booked. Hello readers, and welcome to episode 47 of Fully Booked. I'm your host Natalie, and today's episode is going to be another bookish news and adaptation episode where I'm going to be talking about some upcoming book releases for the rest of 2025, as well as some news that has come out in the past couple months on some upcoming adaptations, which I feel like it's always very exciting to get to hear about our favorite books coming to life on the screen. But before we dive into all of that, I have some other kind of not related updates for you guys. If you guys are following along on my Instagram story and all those updates, you might have seen this already, but I actually got to meet June Hur the other day, and she actually wasn't doing a book signing or related talk, but it was actually a faith-based talk in collaboration with an organization called the Canadian Bible Society. And obviously I was able to go because she's actually local to Toronto. It was really cool to get to go to that talk. And it was just so nice getting to meet, first of all, an author, but also just someone who is such a sweet and wonderful human being. She was so kind and just easy to talk to. And actually, a little bit of an interesting note, I actually have a mutual connection because my church friend who is in my home small group, they're actually kind of childhood friends, or their friendship goes way back because I think they went to the same church growing up. They've known each other for quite a while, and my friend just happened to tell me, I think, just a couple of months ago, maybe sometime last year, that she had a friend who was an author. So then I went, and obviously I had to go and look her up online. I've just been following her journey, seeing stuff she posts on social media ever since, and I'm just really excited to get to hopefully dive more into her books, especially since she writes all Korean historicals. But I was able to get a Crane Among Wolves signed by her, which I'm still very, very grateful for. But just to show you guys the inside cover, here, that is her signature, and she even has her own Korean seal, which is cool because I feel like not many people have that here necessarily. So that is her, I guess, official Korean seal there. And then final note before we get into the rest of the episode, as I'm speaking the day that today's episode is released, it is going to be the release day for Katabasis. So happy Katabasis release day to all my RF Kwong fans out there. I'm sad to say that I'm not going to be picking this one up for a while though, because I'm actually pretty behind in reading RF Kwong's backlist, where I've still only read Yellowface by her, and I haven't even picked up any of her fantasy books, which I feel like are her more well-known titles. And at the least, I want to attempt to finish Babel before I move on to any of the rest of R.F. Kwong's books. So that is a definite must for me. But for anyone who does pick this book up very soon, let me know how you guys are finding it. Actually, I lied. Before we get into today's episode, let's do Doll of the Day quickly. So to start off, drink, I have a nice hot Americano. I literally just made this to sip on while I film the rest of this episode. And then for outfit, I have a t-shirt and a long skirt going on because I get really cold, especially whenever I film by the desk and I'm right near the air vent. Totally guys, you can see a little better, but yes, I have this long green pleated skirt on, which is from Uniqlo. I got it honestly, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago now, but I still like to wear it. And then I have this t-shirt which has a quote on it which says, "Spring is always coming and I know for sure that I will always have a dog." Comment below or DM me if you guys know what book that quote is from. And then for books, I have 2 main ones that I want to talk about right now, which are Kim Ji-young, born 1982, as well as Wild Reverence. So the first one I'm actually reading for an episode that I'm planning to release very soon at this point. And then the second one, Wild Reverence. You guys, I was so excited when I got the approval email, I think about 2 weeks ago, at the point in time that I'm filming this, because I think it had been almost 3 months by the time I got the approval email from the time that I requested. So I figured by now, there's no way that I got it. I honestly knew so few people that got an e-arc except for Bestie Jamie. But I feel like a bunch of people got late later approval, and I guess I was just one of those. So yeah, very happy. I am almost halfway into that right now, and I just can't wait to continue it. Anyways, enough updates. Let's actually get into all the book releases that we have for today. So I'm literally just going month by month. So starting with the month of September, I have a bunch written down. Yeah, so we have lots to talk about for sure. But anyways, so the first ones I have, which are going to be released on September 9th, are People Watching by Hannah Bonham Young and Wild Card by Elsie Silver. So People Watching honestly just interested me because I really enjoyed Out of the Woods earlier this year by Hannah Bonham Young, and also the cover of this one is just really giving fall with the trees and just the landscape in the background. And it also sounds interesting because it's apparently set in the town of Bayesville, which FYI is actually a real town in Ontario. And I believe I was skimming a Instagram post that she made the other day, and she actually mentioned that either she grew up in Bayesville or Bayesville is a place that she visited many times growing up. So it's something that's very near and dear to her heart. So I'm excited, and I love seeing authors write about things that are just so close to their heart. I know that they'll have so many great things to say about and just convince you as a reader to want to visit and love those places as well. And then I honestly don't know much else about this book, except that I can see on Goodreads that it's marked Friends to Lovers. And there's also something about the FMC has to care for her mother who has early onset Alzheimer's, which, by the way, I know I've mentioned this a couple times already, but I swear every contemporary romance author decided to use this storyline. I'm not going to go on and on about it again, but I'm pretty sure this is going to be the 4th book that I will read that has this type of storyline. And yeah, because I love Hannah Bonham Young so much, I'm putting it very high up on my TBR for the month of September. But yeah, hope to read that one. And then for Wildcard, I really don't know much about it because I forget if I mentioned specifically, but I haven't read, or completed at least, any Elsie Silver books. I also haven't read any cowboy romances, and obviously I would have to start at the beginning of this series. This is the 4th and I think the final book in the Rose Hill series, for those of you who weren't aware. And yeah, I really don't know what this is about, except again, cowboy romance. I think I did see on Goodreads the other day though that it is an age gap romance, which is always interesting. But it's also interesting because it's also the FMC's ex-boyfriend's dad. And it's not the typical kind of romance that I would read, but I feel like cowboy romance is a genre or subgenre, I should say, I do want to try to explore over the next couple months, and yeah, going into 2026. The next couple books that are coming out on September 16th, we have The Gingerbread Bakery by Laurie Gilmore and The Academy, which is by Ellen Hilderbrand and her daughter, Shelby Cunningham, which that's a very interesting collaboration. And then, of course, you guys know my love-hate with the Dream Harbor series, but I have been waiting ever since the Pumpkin Spice Cafe to find out about Annie and Mac's story. So even though I have not given any of these books above 3 stars, I am definitely going to be picking up The Gingerbread Bakery. I'm kind of curious though why it is coming out in September, because just looking at the cover alone, the title even, it screams very Christmassy to me. So it's definitely not one that I'll be picking up right away, but you probably will see me pick this one up within 2025. And then The Academy, I didn't really know much about until I was looking at it a little bit on Goodreads earlier. I can see from the description, it's basically a kind of YA contemporary novel that is set in a boarding school in New England. And yeah, that sounds pretty interesting. I haven't been reading a lot of YA books, and I'm gonna be honest, after reading 28 Summers, I feel like Ellen Hilderbrand is a little bit of an hit or miss author for me, because yeah, I just really associate her with beach reads. And it's, yeah, this one's definitely different because even the cover alone with the fall foliage on it and even just the school setting in general just screams more fall to me. But yeah, it does sound a little bit intriguing because I haven't read many books set in a boarding school, so maybe I will pick this one up. And then the next book I'm going to talk about, I feel like a lot of people probably have this on their radar already, and that is Alchemized by Sen Lin Yu, which is coming out on September 23rd. And obviously this is the traditionally published version of Manacled, and it's actually so crazy that this is going to be the 3rd traditionally published Hermione fanfic that is coming out within this year, if you're also counting The Irresistible Urge and Rose in Chains. Apparently Hermione fanfiction is back, and now as traditionally published. But yeah, this one, I don't really know much about the storyline. Obviously, I'm assuming it's going to be loosely based on Manacled, just removing the Harry Potter world and terminology. And I feel like for this one, it's actually easier for me to talk about Manacled because I know a bit more about the self-published version. So I'm going to touch on that quickly. Just a note, I kind of have to spoil the ending of Harry Potter to talk about it. So if for some reason you have not read Harry Potter or watched the movies, skip ahead. I'm going to try to put a timestamp so you guys know where to start listening again. I would really hope that people have read Harry Potter by now, or even if you don't know anything about it, you know how it ends. But I know I hate being spoiled for series that I know nothing about, so here we go. Okay, starting now. So Manacled is basically a reimagined Harry Potter world where instead of Voldemort dying, the dark side wins, and then I believe Harry and Ron are both dead, and then the rest of the Order of the Phoenix disbands. People either run or they're trying to figure out how to live in this new order, in this new dark world. And Hermione is basically imprisoned at the start of this book, but she does survive and is trying to make her way in this new world. And then we basically have this Handmaid's Tale kind of aspect in it where I think the Muggle-borns, they're being used to carry babies for some of the pureblood wizards. I don't quite remember the exact premise, but it's something like that. So I think Hermione basically gets picked to be one of these surrogates, and then of course she gets paired up with or meets Draco, and onwards from there. Also for this one, I don't know if it's just me, and I should probably just actually go and research this at some point, but I don't really know if there's protocol for fan fiction that ends up getting traditionally published, and whether you have to only read the traditionally published version once it's out there and being distributed to the public. Because I do remember I did download Manacled at some point in time, obviously when it was just self-published. With the book coming out, I feel like it's kind of intrigued me a little, but I don't necessarily want to read a book that's just set in a completely alternate made-up world. But I don't know if there are just licensing and other types of legal restrictions, because I'm pretty sure once these types of self-published fanfics get published, they do get removed and archived online. So I don't even know if there would be anywhere for me to read Manacled, even if I wanted to read it at this point in time. If you guys are aware of any of that stuff, actually, please feel free to let me know. And actually, if I can still read it, then which one I should start with, because I've been wrestling with this for months, ever since I heard that Manacled was going to be released as Alchemized. I also hope that Alchemized is a standalone. It doesn't really specify on Goodreads, but I do know that The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy is apparently going to be a series, which I feel like does not intrigue me as much to pick it up. And then we have two more books that I'm going to talk about for September, which both come out on September 30th, which are Soul Searching by Lila Sage and Fake Skating by Lynn Painter. So the first one, Soul Searching, this is actually going to be the start of a new cowboy romance series called Sweetwater Peak. But this one looks interesting, and it actually says it's, again, a adult cowboy romance, but it's also a paranormal romance where apparently there's this aspect of the FMC being able to talk to or communicate with ghosts. So we're definitely getting some different elements in this one. It's not gonna be your typical cowboy romance. I'm not gonna lie, again, like I just said before, I haven't read any cowboy romances, so I'd probably want to start with the more traditional ones. This is one that's probably gonna be on my radar way more in the future. And then I actually remember Lynn Painter talking about Fake Skating, because I actually was able to go to an event last September, and this one's gonna be another YA romance. I think it's also gonna be a hockey romance where the MMC is a hockey player. And I vaguely remember, I think it's one where the FMC and MMC are like childhood friends. They knew each other growing up, but then he moved away, to another place, and they kind of lost touch. But then he ends up moving back to, I guess, the place where the FMC lives. And of course, he's changed a lot. They're also, I think, kind of in their later teens, and he's tall, he's broad. I'm not gonna lie, if I ever want a YA hockey romance, I might pick this up. I guess I just put this on there because I feel like a couple people have been getting to Lynn Painter still, even in 2025, and so many people like YA romances, especially for like, you know, no spice or closed door aspect. So if you are looking for another Lynn Painter YA romance, there you go. Okay, that's all the books I have for September. Let's move on to October. So it's actually crazy. The first 4 books that I have written down are all coming out on the same day, which is October 7th, and we have Mate by Ali Hazelwood, The Intruder by Frida McFadden, Cover Story by Vari McFarlane, and Alchemy of Secrets by Stephanie Garber. I'm really gonna preface, I don't know a lot about these books, and just an FYI, I'm not giving away any spoilers when I'm talking about, I don't know, plots and premises of these books. It's literally stuff that is written on Goodreads that you can look up, just a little FYI. Anyways, continuing. So obviously Mate is the sequel to Bride, which was Ali Hazelwood's first paranormal romance, which I believe came out last March, if I'm not mistaken. And I personally did not enjoy Bride. I think I talked about it a little bit on the pod sometime last year, but a lot of people did enjoy, and it was definitely something new from Ali Hazelwood. So I think most of us will be excited to see her continue down, I guess, this new path in this series. And then The Intruder by Frida McFadden, all I read about it was that it is about a girl who's in a cabin in the woods type of situation in a storm. And that's literally all I read and saw in terms of the premise. One thing I will say, I'm glad she's going back to female point of view, because the last book and her latest release, which I read, was mainly done from the MMC's point of view. And for me at least, I just felt like it was not done in the best way. I just felt like it was almost too stereotypically alpha male, and just not in a good way. I just didn't really enjoy reading from that point of view, and I don't know, maybe it just could have been tweaked a bit more. So yeah, I think she's just a lot better at capturing a storyline and events from the female. And then Cover Story by Vari McFarlane. Again, I actually have no clue what this book is about. If you guys know, let me know. But I also just put it on because Vari McFarlane is an author that I have yet to read, but I really want to, because Haley Pham has talked about her so many times on her channel. She's read all her books and loved them. They have so many great storylines, but also like deeper emotional themes and aspects. And yeah, I feel like some of her books, they're not all romance too. Like, even though I think her books, they're all technically romances, they don't necessarily always focus on the romance though throughout most of the storyline that you're getting. You just get, yeah, so many other things in her books, and I feel like that's the type of romance book that you guys know I love and gravitate towards. Even though I don't know what it's about, I will probably pick it up at some point. And then Alchemy of Secrets. This one has a really interesting premise, which is what immediately drew me in, even though I actually have not picked up a single Stephanie Garber book still. Yeah, but this one, basically we're following this woman who is trying to find this sort of ancient magical artifact that is going to save her life. But yeah, it just sounded so cool, and it's also interesting because this is going to be Stephanie Garber's first adult contemporary fantasy, because I think all her books previously have been YA fantasy. And yeah, this one actually does sound very interesting. This one is going to be the start of a series, apparently. Now, I'm not honestly sure whether I will end up reading the whole series, but I actually do really want to start this one. I feel like it's kind of almost like a treasure hunt kind of storyline we have going on here, which is so cool. I don't think we have, I don't know, many of that in fantasy books necessarily, or at least not the fantasy books that I'm seeing people pick up and read. Yeah, I'm very intrigued. Also, I just want to say, the cover of this one is giving Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Does anybody else agree with me or not? And then the last book I have written down for October, which is coming out on October 21st, is Girl Dinner by Olivia Blake. And this is an adult mystery thriller. It's giving very Bunny by Mona Awad vibes. I'm gonna be honest, I only got about halfway into that book before DNFing it because it was honestly just too unhinged for me. And I just got to that point in the book where, yeah, some crazy things were happening and you don't even know what's really happening, like plot-wise or in the storyline at that point in time. And I just decided that it was not the type of thing that I wanted to be reading at that point in time. Honestly, if you liked that book and if you liked those unhinged vibes, then maybe this one will be on your radar. And then we actually have 3 more books to talk about in the book releases section. So starting with, on November 4th, we have a new book by Kristen Ciccarelli coming out, which FYI, I've heard that's how you pronounce her last name, not Cicerelli, but if I'm wrong, please feel free to correct me. But yes, we have A Dark Forgetting coming out by her, and I don't even want to guess what this is about, so I'm just going to read to you guys from Goodreads for this one. It says, New York Times bestselling author Kristen Ciccarelli weaves the epic love story of a magical girl, the boy she left behind, and a deadly curse. And it's labeled as YA paranormal urban fantasy. But that is a preview for you there. And I have to say, I think a couple people have mentioned that, her other well-known duology, The Crimson Moth, or otherwise known as Heartless Hunter, it actually has some kind of Bridgerton Regency vibes going on in that story, and I think hearing that kind of just pulled me in, especially since I've started watching Bridgerton. I'm not gonna lie, I feel like the period blood aspect kind of threw me off, and I didn't really want to read about the book after hearing that, but hearing about the Bridgerton vibes, it's kind of pulling me back in and reeling me into trying that series, trying this author. So yeah, if I end up liking that series, maybe this one will also bump up on my radar. And then on November 18th, we have another book by Kate Goldbeck coming out called Daddy Issues. I don't know if you guys remember the book You Again that was released a couple years ago. It has very iconic like fall leaves on the cover. Anyways, Daddy Issues is a bit of a different book where we have an age gap romance going on, and it's also set in Ohio instead of New York. But I remember I really liked her writing style in You Again. I thought it was like one of those very raw and honest kind of writing styles, and we got to see so much like soul bearing, I feel like, of our FMC and MMC in that book. Like, even though that book is a When Harry Met Sally retelling, I feel like because of the writing style, it feels nothing like When Harry Met Sally. Because When Harry Met Sally is very classic rom-com vibes, but You Again felt very much like a dark comedy, the way it was written. So yeah, because of that, and I kind of like that writing style, I feel like I might pick this one up. And then for the final book release that we're gonna talk about, which if you guys can't tell by my voice, this is my most anticipated release, we have In Your Dreams by Sarah Adams coming out December 30th, which is crazy because the release date got pushed up from the first week of January to December 30th. I know it's only a week earlier, but for someone like me who is a huge fan of Sarah Adams, this is very exciting news. And for those of you who don't know, this is going to be the last book in the When in Rome series. So far we've gotten all of the siblings' stories and romances. So Noah, Annie, and Emily. And this one, we're finally getting Madison and James' story, which I have been waiting for. I feel like for those of you who also read a lot of interconnected standalone romances, you probably know that authors tend to do this trend where there's always a character or couple that is mentioned, maybe even talked about quite a few times in the beginning of the series, and then we don't get their actual story and romance until the very last book. This is what Sarah Adams did. So yes, I've been waiting for their story for quite a while, as some of you have also probably been, and I feel like this one's gonna be fun because we're gonna have the brother's best friend or best friend's sister trope going on, depending on which point of view that you're thinking from. Although FYI, Sarah Adams always does dual POV for all of her romance books, so we are going to get both of their perspectives. This is just honestly one of my favorite tropes, like the sibling, friend, or friend-sibling type trope in romance books is one of my faves. I think best friend's brother, out of all the combinations, is still my ultimate favorite. Yeah, any sort of sibling-friend trope always gets me because I feel like they usually tend to have a lot more history. You're just bound to have known them for a long time, and yeah, there's just gonna be a lot more going on in this story, and it's probably gonna be a little sad and bittersweet wrapping up this universe, and we're not gonna be getting another book here. I'm excited to see what she does with it.
Hey readers, I hope you're enjoying the episode so far, and hear me out before you hit skip. I'm so grateful for all my listeners who are with me on this reading journey, and I'd like to ask that if you haven't yet, please leave a rating and review as it helps others find the podcast. Also, please consider supporting the podcast financially as it helps me bring you more exciting content, and you'll get some extras like bonus and subscriber-only episodes, early access to new episodes, and much more. The link to donate will be in the show notes below, or you can go to buymeacoffee.com/fullybookedpod. Thank you so much again for choosing to listen to Fully Booked, and now back to the episode.
So that was all the upcoming book releases I had for you guys. Let's start diving into some upcoming adaptations and news. But one big bookish update I do have to mention before we get into that, because I think it would be a crime for me not to mention. Although I have to admit, I'm pretty sure most of you guys are already gonna know about this, and that is SJM finally broke her silence about a month ago now, and we are getting ACOTAR 6. At least from the looks of the video that she posted. And it's crazy because it was such a short clip. Like, there was a flash of showing the title that was written on her notebook. But you could definitely tell it says ACOTAR, which has to mean that she is writing the next ACOTAR novel. Unfortunately, we don't have any other news, like how far she is. She's in like some sort of editing phase now. We only know that the first draft or whatever it is done. But yeah, obviously everyone, like in my book club and obviously in the online book community, was very excited seeing this news. I'm gonna be honest, you guys know, I haven't finished ACOTAR still, but now knowing that there is actually gonna be a next book coming out, I feel like it is encouraging me to push it up my TBR a little more. Although I have to admit, I don't know how many books are gonna be in this series. I wanna say there's gonna be 7 books in total. I'm pretty sure that ACOTAR 6 is not going to be the last book in this series. But knowing that like we're getting near the end, I feel like potentially within next year it would be a good time for me to try picking up ACOTAR again. Anyways, so for upcoming adaptations, I actually don't have that many to talk about today. It's more so that there were a couple announcements and news that came out shortly after the last bookish news episode that I did that I just wasn't able to put in that episode in time, so we're putting it in today's episode. So some of this is going to be a little bit old news, but I thought we could talk about it anyways. First off, we have a TV series coming out for the Off-Campus series, which is one of the series written by Elle Kennedy that is like a college age, I think, sports romance-based series. I don't even know what this series is about. I just put it on there because honestly, I remember, I think one of the guys who was cast in the series, I don't remember his name, but somebody in my book club was saying that they grew up with that person or they went to high school with him or something. And now he's getting to star in a big TV series. It's actually so interesting how many people I've met who grew up in Toronto and ended up going to high school with like a movie star or a K-pop star, or yeah, someone who's ended up becoming famous. Yeah, that's just unfortunately, I guess, one of the woes of having grown up in a suburb outside the GTA. Then something I do know about, we have The Love Hypothesis is, I believe, still currently in production as we speak. Honestly, I didn't look at the full cast for this one. I just remember that Lily Reinhardt is going to be playing Olive and Tom Bateman is going to be playing Adam. I guess if you guys aren't aware, I believe Ali Hazelwood kind of got her start as like a fanfic writer. Yeah, The Love Hypothesis is basically a traditionally published Reylo fanfic. And then the crazy thing is, Tom Bateman is Daisy Ridley's husband, and Daisy Ridley plays Ray. So yeah, that's kind of meta in some sort of circular way. I don't know what you want to call that, but yeah, that's just actually very quite strange. I don't know if they did that accidentally or if they knew who he was married to when they did the casting for this movie, but yeah, that's just a very interesting choice. And I'm curious to see how this movie turns out because I actually saw that they were filming at least part of it in Montreal, which is so weird because it takes place at Stanford University. And I feel like Quebec and Montreal just doesn't really look the same as like California and the West Coast in terms of, yeah, the outdoor setting and atmosphere. So I'm kind of curious why, yeah, of all places, even Canada, that they chose to film in Montreal. Unless there are some buildings, I guess, around the area that happen to look like Stanford and the campus. To be fair, I've actually never been to, I think, like any of the university campuses like McGill. Maybe they do resemble Stanford a bit. I guess we'll have to see. This next one, I'm personally pretty excited to talk about because I really enjoyed the book the first time around that I read it. That is Every Summer After. We are getting a Prime TV show adaptation retitled Every Year After. Side note, I have no clue why they changed the title for the TV show. And then honestly, I did not recognize the cast list for this one. I'll throw up some pictures on the screen so those of you watching video can see if you recognize any of these actors. But yeah, we have a full cast for this. And unfortunately, we don't have any news of release date. I don't think we even have any updates on whether it's in production yet or not. But I'm assuming if they have a full cast, that means it's going to go ahead at some point, which is pretty cool and interesting to see. Especially because I'm not necessarily seeing a lot of romances being adapted that are set in Canadian settings. So as a Canadian, I'm kind of excited to see what they end up doing with this. Although, not to go off on a tangent, but I feel like looking kind of at the people they cast and knowing that it's a Prime TV show, I feel like it's gonna be very much the same situation as The Summer I Turned Pretty, where they're gonna add extra characters and storylines that were not necessarily originally in the book. I'm not gonna lie, I feel like if this were gonna be a movie, they could actually stick closer to the book and focus more on just the main romance between Sam and Percy. But I just feel like for a TV show where they might try to stretch it over multiple seasons, I could just see them doing that, then it's just gonna be too boring, and I feel like they'll want to create more drama and intrigue just with new and extra characters. And yeah, it's gonna be the same thing as The Summer I Turned Pretty, and it's just gonna be a whole maybe separate entity and production of its own. And then on that note, let me know if you guys are also watching The Summer I Turned Pretty Season 3. Obviously, we're going to be further along by the time you guys are watching this, but at the time that I'm filming right now, they just released episode 6, and then we have, I checked, 5 more episodes to go, 11 episodes in total, and then The Summer I Turned Pretty is finally going to be done. And I've heard some people are theorizing that they're going to change the ending from the book, which I don't really understand because I feel like given the direction the show has taken, it would not make sense if they completely changed it from the book. Actually, yeah, I don't want to spoil those of you who are just watching the show and haven't read the books, but it just would not make sense. But yeah, I'm curious to see how the rest of season 3 is going to go because I literally just watched someone make a TikTok, I think yesterday, of someone who was looking at the credits for episode 6. And it showed Paris location and cast and crew, which means that they filmed at least part of the season in Paris. So that clues us into that something is going to happen in this season where we're going to end up going to Paris after all. I don't even know exactly what's going to happen. I'm kind of confused how they're going to put that into the storyline. I guess if they are. Yeah, I think there's definitely like lots of theories and stuff going around as the season's coming to an end. But I do have to say, I think I was actually kind of on the fence before when I initially first read the series, but having watched the TV show now, I gotta say I am Team Conrad officially. And then for the final upcoming adaptation, we do have a lot more news on this one, and that is Project Hail Mary, which is officially coming out March 20th, 2026, starring Ryan Gosling. Yeah, he's the big star of this movie, if I'm gonna be honest, looking at the cast list. And it's crazy because I haven't even watched the trailer for this yet, but so many people in the book community have read this book by now that I already know I'm going to read the book and watch the movie in that specific order. It's funny because like Project Hail Mary's been very in the middle, kind of even lower on my TBR, but I think as soon as I saw there was officially a movie coming out with the release date, it really pushed Project Hail Mary up on my TBR. I think it's one though that because there's a movie now coming out, I want to catch a lot of like details in the plot, so I'm probably gonna have to read and audiobook it together. I think at one point, I was just going to audiobook it because so many people have been praising the audiobook for this one and said that you have to audiobook it. But I know I will not catch every single detail and in the plot going on if I only audiobook it. So I'm probably going to have to pick it up and read it. I'm pretty sure I already have it downloaded on my Kindle because I remember I skipped the line copy on Libby a couple months ago. This is one that I'm definitely gotta read, and I feel like it looks pretty good. Like, it's a movie that I would want to go see in the theater. So again, that's going up on the TBR. And that wraps up my Bookish News Part 2 for 2025. Thank you for tuning in wherever you were watching or listening from. Let me know in the comments which of these upcoming releases or adaptations are on your radar, or if there's any that I didn't cover in today's episode that are on your radar, then let me know those as well so I can have more to add. But a few housekeeping announcements and things before we go. No new episode out next week, but we will be back the week after. And then as always, rate and review the pod wherever you listen. Subscribe on the YouTube channel so you can get notified of every single video I'm uploading. And make sure to check out my Buy Me a Coffee page if you want all that good extra content, as well as early access episodes, which I am still uploading on Fridays. But as always, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next episode.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you were able to take away something, and be sure to follow the podcast for more bookish content. Until next time, stay fully booked, and I'll talk to you soon.